Welcome to the Word Cafe podcast. This podcast has been designed with created content that centers on the power of words. Can we really do anything without speaking? Can we really do anything without the agency of words? Yes, that is what this podcast is all about. And I am your host, Amakri Isobe, your neighborhood word trader. I believe in the power of words, for it is the unit of creation. I trade in words to profit my world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good everything. How are you all doing? Yes, we're back into that space. The Word Cafe live show. How's it been with you? Good with me, I must say. It's been amazing where I am. It's been raining, practically for almost a week now. It's been raining and the weather was pretty good where I am. Yes, I'm excited today. Yes, I know the legend of Nikola Tesla. It's like, do we want to talk about Tesla today? Yes, we're going to be talking about Tesla today. And before I bring my guest on, he is this amazing personality. I've been doing a lot of reading of late about Tesla, his life and everything. And I came upon, this individual. His name is Mark Jeffrey Safer. When he comes on, he will talk about himself and all of that. But he is a Nikola Tesla expert, and I read one of his recent work about Nikola Tesla, and I was blown away. As in a few, pages I read, and I'm still reading that book. I got to him and I said, "Please, would you love to come on my show and talk about Mr. Tesla, his legend, his legacy, and all of that?" And he was like, "Why not? If not?" And I'm super excited. Enough of my talk, and I'm going to bring him on now. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Amakri. How are you?
I'm good. And you?
Great. Doing great.
I'm super excited. I was telling my wife about Nikola Tesla, and I told her I came in contact with this Nikola Tesla expert. And she was like, "Okay, tell me, what is it?" I said, "I reached him to come on the show and he accepted." She was like, "Really?" I said, "Yes." And she was like, "Good for you." And here we are today. I am super excited. So how's the weather where you are now? How's the weather?
Well, yesterday was the perfect day. It was a perfect spring day. Today, it's a little bit cloudy, but
all right.
We're headed into spring and then in the summer, my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, favorite for all of us. Where I am, it's been raining anyway. Here in Nigeria, it's been raining. And, we can't complain. We need the rain. Yes, we need the rain. Before I brought you on, before we go into talking about who Max Safer is and we get into the days, you were telling me something about a Nigerian that, you've been in contact with for a while, but you lost touch or so. Her name, you said, is Abimbola.
Yes, Abimbola Agutsatan. I'm in Rhode Island, and my wife worked at the University of Rhode Island, and she was a graduate student there for many years, and we were good friends.
Amazing. So, who is Mark Safer? Let us get to meet Mark Safer. Who is he?
I'm a strange guy, I have to admit. I taught parapsychology, ESP, for many years. Right. And because of my interest in parapsychology, I got friends with a guy who was involved with UFOs. And because of that, believe it or not, we're going all the way back to the 1970s, over 40 years ago.
You don't say.
Tesla's name had totally disappeared from the history books. He was gone, but he was kept alive in the UFO realm. And so I got a biography of his from a UFO organization, and Howard had given me some other information about it. Howard was teaching a course on UFOs, and he also had a magazine called Ancient Astronauts. So I wrote my first article on Tesla in 1976. It was called Nikola Tesla, the Man Who Fell to Earth. There was this mythology that he was born on another planet. He'd come to this world to give us a hydroelectric power system, remote control, wireless communication, fluorescent and neon lights, the induction motor, and that he was a Martian. And this became eventually a movie starring David Bowie. And David Bowie plays an extraterrestrial, but it's secretly about Tesla. So in 1976, very few people knew it was about Tesla. But in the early 2000s, there was the movie The Prestige, where David Bowie again played Tesla. And that was the reason he was chosen, because 40 years earlier, 35 years earlier, he had played a Martian who actually was based on Tesla's life. So it was due to my interest in ESP that I got interested in Tesla. And once I found out that his patents were real, I said, wow, you got telepathy, psychokinesis, out-of-body experiences, psychic metal bending, all these ghosts, life after death. That's all hard to prove. But Tesla had real patents. So this was solid stuff. So that's why I really got into it. And that created my first book, Wizard, The Life and Times of Nikola Tesla. And in it, what I did was I have 1,000 endnotes, because there was a lot of prejudice against him. And I wanted to say, read all the research, and you'll see he really is the inventor of the hydroelectric power system, the induction motor, remote control, robotics, cell phone technology. And so that's really how I got started. And that's really a little bit about myself.
Beautiful. I mean, I will describe what you have said now like you were chosen for this, more or less like picked out to talk about this man, Nikola Tesla. A lot of us don't know so much about him. When I mentioned Tesla to my wife, what came to her mind was Elon Musk. I said, no, it's not Elon. There's somebody called Nikola Tesla,
right.
And I had to give her one or two information about it. She said, really? I said, yes. So for me as a reader, and I love researching and all that, I came upon Nikola Tesla way back, I think in my secondary school days or so. And I read about him. Honestly, reading about him made it look like he was not human. I mean, the way his thought pattern and everything. But over the years, I now stumbled upon the current war between Tesla and is in George Westinghouse now, I think so, and that aroused my interest again. And in course of, I came upon you, who had really done serious work on him. And I was like, no, somehow I need to share more about this individual called Nikola Tesla on my show. And I'm glad, like I said earlier, you accepted to do this. Now, when I was reading your book, the beginning part, talking about his origin, Tesla, I mean now, from the Romania, Croatia aspect and all that. Can you say one or two things about it? Because when I saw that, it was quite ancient for me, and I was like, this guy is actually real.
Yeah, Tesla was born in 1856. This was the same year that Sigmund Freud was born. And he was born in Croatia, in a town called Smiljan. So if you've been to Rome, it's only 150 miles across the Adriatic Sea as the crow flies. But it's 100 or 200 or 300 years more primitive. It's a very backward area. When I was there in 1986, there were ox carts. Instead of cars, It's really in the middle of nowhere. So he grew up in the middle of nowhere, but he was highly intelligent. His father was a Serbian Orthodox priest. These priests, they believe in Jesus Christ, but they can get married. So that's the difference between the Catholic priest and the Orthodox priest. Yeah. So he was married, and he had 5 children, and Tesla was the 4th child. It was an older brother, Dane. And both Dane and Tesla had great powers of eidetic imagery. They could envision things in their mind. And eventually Tesla would come to design inventions in his mind and run them in his mind, and then see what's wrong with them, and then eventually actually physically build them. And so that was one of his abilities. He also had the ability, it's called traveling clairvoyance. He could travel to other places in his mind. And so he had all this mystical background, but he eventually went to Graz University in Austria, which was like in America, like MIT. I mean, it's a very highly technical school. And then he went to the University of Prague in Czechoslovakia, and he was an advanced mathematics student. So, you're asking, what was there some mystical side to him? And I think there was a mystical side, and that was in the 1870s and the early 1880s. You have to understand, electricity was just coming in. Thomas Edison had built the light bulb, But
Mhm.
electricity by its nature is alternating. It's an AC current. Now, what alternating current means is that it changes its direction of flow at thousands of miles a second. So if you have a wire, the electricity is going back and forth and back and forth. But how do you make a motor run in one direction? Think about, suppose it was a water wheel and a river. Suppose the river was flowing downstream, then upstream, then downstream, then upstream at thousands of times a second. How could you make the water wheel go in one direction? So what they did was they eliminated the upflow and they only had the downflow. That's what direct current is, but it was highly inefficient. So when Edison was building his Edison light bulbs, you could only send electricity about 1 mile and then only for lighting homes. You couldn't run your refrigerator, your toaster, your factory. So if you could only, I don't know Nigeria well enough, but I'm sure there's hundreds of villages all throughout Nigeria. So you would have to have at every single village a power plant, and it would be run by coal, or unless it was next to a river. So all the factories where I am, I'm near New York and Boston, all the major factories in the 1800s were along a river because you had to be so close to the power source. So when Tesla came in where I live in the New York, Boston area, there were 3,000 coal-operated power plants, lighting up all these hamlets. We have all this pollution, all this coal-operated pollution going into the... So what Tesla figured out was how to do away with the commutator. In other words, how to do away with the mechanism that only made electricity go in one direction. And what he did was, it took him 5 years of daily concentration. He came up with two circuits out of phase with each other. And when you time the two circuits, he created something called the rotating magnetic field. And that was so he could make a motor work. So once you remove the commutator, the difference between Edison's system and Tesla's system, with Edison's system, you could only send electricity 1 mile only for lighting homes. With Tesla's system, and you've got coal-operated polluting. With Tesla's system, he's the inventor of the hydroelectric power system. Hydroelectrics is clean energy. It's running on a waterfall, so there's no air pollution. And from one falls, Niagara Falls in New York, you could run factories and power homes to run refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, toasters, etc., lighting in Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, New Haven, Providence, the entire Northeast, thousands and thousands, millions of homes run from one clean operated energy system. So for me, it's utopian dream. It is the perfect situation because you're not sapping the world of oil or coal. It's running on a waterfall. It's renewable and it's clean. You're not polluting the earth. So in that way, I think had he not come at that time, we would be in terrible straits. So he came in a mystical way at this perfect time and did away with all that coal-operated local power plants and changed the world. So the current war that you were talking about, Westinghouse backed Tesla. So it was Westinghouse and Tesla against Tom Edison.
Tom Edison,
So if Tom Edison had won the war of the currents, all the factories would have had to move to Niagara Falls. He couldn't have even lit Buffalo, which was 22 miles away. So thank heavens that Tesla and Westinghouse won the war of the currents.
Yeah. Now, when you made mention of his childhood, the eidetic imagery and his brother Danae, I read about that, the beginning part of the book. What caught my attention was he was fascinated by animals, nature, and somehow he related so well that growing up into the full-fledged Tesla, he was always going back to those moments and taking those images he saw in creating the future. Can you throw more light on that?
Yeah, he had a cat. The cat's name was Macaque, and it was in the winter was a lot of static electricity. So he's petting the cat, and these sparks are flying off the cat, and his mother's afraid that the house will burn down. And he's in his 80s, reflecting back on his childhood. And he said, I still don't really understand what electricity is. Here's the greatest electrical inventor of the modern times, still not really knowing what electricity is. Our whole body runs on electricity. We get electricity, life comes from the sun. But what he's talking about is that there's some mystical side to our existence. And as much as we know about it, how can we really understand the secret of life, which is electrical in nature? I think that's linked to his early childhood of just petting this cat and seeing the sparks fly off the cat.
Yeah. So now I came upon this documentary, I think Telefonke or so, that's the name, that had to do with, I think, the Second World War, the Germans sending and all of that, and Tesla's name came into the mix. I wanted to say something about that because it's like his thought drove those processes.
Yeah, well, he lived a long, long life. Born in 1856, he lives through World War I, which is around 1915 to 1917. He also lives all through the beginning of World War II. And he was always trying to figure out a way to end all wars. In the 1890s, during the Spanish-American War in 1898, he invented the remote control robotic boat. I think he should have gotten a Nobel Prize for this invention. It's just an incredible invention. What he had was, it's a boat that operated remote control. You have these toys, the cars that run on remote control. But he had two aerials on the boat. The reason that he had the two aerials, he was using two different frequencies, because if the combination of those two frequencies would be selective tuning. The problem was, if you used a torpedo and you're on a boat and you send a torpedo out, the bad guys could take your torpedo, make it turn around and go back if they could catch that frequency. So how do you get a very top secret frequency? He came up with the concept of multiplying frequencies. That is the basis of cell phone technology. Every single person on this planet, and there were 8 billion people, can each have their own cell phone. Tesla is the guy who figured that out, how to do that. And it's all in 1898 with those two aerials where he's using a combination of two frequencies. Marconi at the time could only send Morse code and only dots and dashes and only knew one frequency. Tesla was working with literally hundreds of thousands of different frequencies and was trying to tell J.P. Morgan in 1901 that I can create an unlimited number of wireless channels. So you have the inventor of cell phone technology in that one invention, but it's also a robotics. Tesla, in 1898, he says, I have created a new species on the planet, not made out of flesh and bones, but out of wires and steel. And it's this boat. So he's already created artificial intelligence. And the way that he steered the boat was with an on-off system. You have a rudder. So when the electricity was on, the rudder went in one direction, and when the electricity was off, a spring would take the rudder in the other direction. So he used an on-off system, which is a binary code, to direct this boat. That is the basis of every single computer chip listens to ones and zeros, yes and no, on and off. So you have in this one invention, like the remote control, the TV remote, the garage door opener, the drone warfare, artificial intelligence. This is 1898 at Madison Square Garden. He's got these two aerials, which creates the basis of cell phone technology, radio, encryption, and all of that. He says that I have created a new species on the planet, not made out of flesh and bones, but out of wires and steel. So he's got this idea of the race of robots, artificial intelligence. But the way he steered the boat was with an on-off system. If the electricity was on, the boat, the rudder went in one direction. If the electricity was off, a spring would bring it into the other direction. So he's just got two components to steer a boat. That is the basis of our cell phone technology. We have every computer chip listens to only ones and zeros. The electricity is on or off. So he has the basis of computer technology, artificial intelligence, remote control, drone warfare, cell phone technology, all in this one invention. And in the 1890s, that's the brilliance of this incredible guy.
That's like he was leading way beyond his time. If one can say that, way beyond his time, even into this present dispensation that we are in. Now, I read something about his notes being confiscated at the time by the CIA or so, as in most of his original works. Why would they do that from where you stand? Why?
Well, he died in World War II. And when we made the television show, The Tesla Files, it went out to 40 different countries. And in making the television show, I did a lot of research on the CIA, the FBI, and in those days, there's something called the Office of Alien Property. The reason that they had that office was America was at war with Germany and Japan, and there was a fear that anybody linked to those two foreign countries would be potential enemies. So the Office of Alien Property would confiscate any property owned by a foreign government or foreign lands. Yeah, so his nephew was the ambassador from Yugoslavia, which was a communist country. Even though Joseph Stalin, was part of the Allies during World War II, England, France, Soviet Union, and America were all together against the Nazi Germans. But it was still, Stalin was a bad guy, and we were stuck with, this horrible communist regime. So the fear was that after Tesla died, if his papers went to Yugoslavia, Tito was the head of Yugoslavia at the time, and Tesla's nephew was the ambassador from Yugoslavia, then the Soviet Union would have access to all of Tesla's top secret papers. So they kept the papers for 10 years. And then in the early 1950s, most of if not all of the papers were transferred to a museum in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, which is now Serbia. And so that was the main reason. It was during the war. They didn't want potential enemies to get a hold of his papers. He had what was known as a particle beam weapon or a death ray. And he wanted to sell the death ray to the British government. And what I discovered in Wizard at War was that Tesla was negotiating with General Andrew McNaughton, who was the head of secret weapons development for the British government. He was working with Winston Churchill. And McNaughton was third in line to head Allied forces. There was Eisenhower, Mountbatten, and then there was this guy, McNaughton. That's who Tesla was negotiating with. Tesla was negotiating with the very peak of power. And we also discovered a letter from Franklin Roosevelt wanting to meet with Tesla. And the reason was this particle beam weapon, the death ray, might have been the only way to protect us against the atom bomb. Whoever got the atom bomb would win World War II. And the Germans had Heisenberg, who was a Nobel Prize winner. And the Americans and the British, they had Niels Bohr and Oppenheimer. These were brilliant scientists, and there was a race. Whoever gets the bomb first wins the war. So if the Germans were to get the bomb, they would have to deliver it probably by plane or by a V-2 rocket. You might need a laser-like beam, a death ray, to knock that thing out of the sky. That's why Tesla's work was so important at that time. That was what was going on. Literally, the fate of the entire world was at play there.
So now, why did he not? Why didn't? I don't know how to frame this question. Brilliant as he was, I don't think he won a Nobel Prize for anything.
Yeah, he never got the Nobel Prize. In 1915, it was announced that he and Edison were to share the Nobel Prize in the New York Times front page, above the fold. And they never got it. And the New York Times never apologized for this huge mistake. However, in the 1930s, the fellow who nominated Albert Einstein for a Nobel Prize nominated Tesla for a Nobel Prize. So he has been nominated for a Nobel Prize, but he didn't get one. I think he deserved about 4 or 5 Nobel Prizes, literally, just in that one invention of the remote control robotic boat.
Amazing. Now, what do we do with his memory? What do we do with his his legacy? Because somehow a lot of people, a good number of us, don't know about Nikola Tesla.
I think what's important is to, I think you should get my book. But I think the more we learn about Tesla, he constantly, raises the bar for you. I've been studying his life since the 1970s, and I'm still learning things about Tesla. For instance, at the end of Tesla Wizard at War, I get into his theories on gravity. Now, I never totally understood gravity. What's so amazing is that you are in Nigeria. I'm in near New York. I'm in Rhode Island. And here we are talking to each other live on camera. Tesla is telling J.P. Morgan in 1901, I want to unify the whole world so that someone in Australia or someone in China will be talking to you as if you're across the room, which is exactly what we are living his dream. So in terms of gravity, I'm like, I think of myself, we're on the top of the planet and Australia's on the bottom of the planet. How come they don't fall off the earth? Gravity somehow keeps everybody onto the planet, and the planet is, rotating at 1,000 miles an hour. So I never totally understood what gravity was. What Tesla was saying what gravity was that all energy, all matter is absorbing energy all of the time. So this pen is absorbing matter. This phone is absorbing matter. This book is absorbing matter. The earth is absorbing a tremendous amount of ether, or which becomes matter. Ether all of the time. So everything is absorbing ether. So the reason that we fall back to the earth, according to this theory, is not that we're attracted to the earth, but that we're in the way of this influx of this tremendous input of energy. So it's a very different way of looking at what gravity is. And I think it makes a lot of sense to me. So we're like, we're constantly absorbing energy all of the time. Now Einstein spent the last 40 years of his life, trying to combine gravity with electromagnetism. This would be called grand unification, and he never achieved that. If all of matter is absorbing energy all the time, what is it doing with that energy? It has to get rid of it, otherwise it would explode. So it's absorbing. So it's transforming that energy into electromagnetic energy. That would be grand unification. That would be combining gravity with electromagnetism, and it'd be solving Einstein's dream of grand unification. So that's at the end of this book, and it all comes out of studying Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity. What I'm trying to say is, here it is for me 40 years later. I'm still learning a lot about the world because of Tesla's incredible genius, trying to figure out, what all of his ideas were.
Amazing. I think you were born to do this, in my opinion, as in to more or less like open up those portals, for us to like begin to think and, begin to, receive those, intelligence to make more changes within our society and our world. Now, from where you stand and what you've been doing so far, how has it been moving this cause forward, in getting people to understand this mind better?
Well, his story is so fascinating. And the thing for me about Tesla is he constantly gets more interesting as you go through his whole life. So I've written a screenplay with my writing partner, Tim Eaton. And we recently been negotiating with Show Dog Entertainment, which is a film company. We're working on a film on his life. I think that he inspires people. And I think that, and the thing about him too is, the word genius is overused. This guy's a genius, that guy's Tesla really was a genius. Another invention of his was called the Osprey helicopter airplane. He called it the flivver plane. He said the plane would take off like a helicopter, and then you'd rotate the propeller into the airplane position. So you could land any place. You could land. He called it a flivver plane, to be the size of a car. If we all had these cars, so you could travel wherever you wanted and land in your backyard. You wouldn't need a huge ramp, like a runway that the airplane had. And that became this $70 million plane that the U.S. military has, called the Osprey. And he has a patent in the 1920s on this. You asked about his papers. They hid a lot of his stuff. They hid a lot of what he did. And when you look at the history of the Osprey helicopter airplane, you won't see Tesla's name. And the only reason that I'm able to say this is because he had a patent on it. I'm able to prove that he really is the inventor of the Osprey helicopter airplane. But had he not had the patent, if he simply had drawings about it, we would never know about it. So there's all these secrets about him which are there.
Yeah.
But I think that what I wanted to say is he's a positive guy. He's a guy that
Yeah.
continues to grow throughout his whole life. And
Yeah.
based upon talking with you, you have this open mind. This interest in the world and how to make the world a better place. That's why I mentioned the hydroelectric power system. It's the perfect system. It's the solution to our power needs. Let's not pollute the earth. Let's have energy and have it be renewable, and that's what he achieved. If we look at Japan had that horrible nuclear power disaster, because they put the nuclear power plant on the coast. They're on a volcano. They could use geothermal energy, which Tesla talked about, because all a nuclear power plant does is boil water. That's all a nuclear power plant does. It boils water to create steam. So can't we create steam in a better way than a nuclear power? Because with nuclear power, you've got, what do you do with the waste? There's no place to put the waste, and you have the danger of they've lost hundreds of acres, thousands of acres because of that horrible thing. So Tesla, to me, stands for the utopian dream of how humans can evolve to the next stage. How can we live in this world with our animals without polluting the earth? And he sets the example of how to achieve that. And he mentioned, many sources. Geothermal was one, where the tides, wind, solar. He talked about all of that at the turn of the century, 100 years ago.
Beautiful. I pray that the filmmakers would buy your idea, and let's see more of Nikola, as in hear about him and get into that element. Because reading about him, I came to realize that he was not a Shylock. He was not after making profit. Rather, he made his inventions, his discovery, and all of that so public, so reachable, that is like, we're here to help one another. I'm here to be part of positive change in the world. That's what, even when I watched the movie, the current war and all of that, and come to read that he died like a peasant. I mean, what? Tell my audience about his death, the way he died.
Yeah, well, there's different ways to look at it, because what I discovered, particularly in the new book, Wizard at War, is that Tesla was literally negotiating with General McNaughton, who I mentioned, who was working with Winston Churchill, with Franklin Roosevelt's people. So he really was living, even into his 80s. So you have this mythology of him just being this old man, dying in obscurity, feeding the pigeons in New York City. But in fact, he was right in the middle of the game, trying to save the world, trying to beat Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, literally up until the day he died. I interviewed Ralph Bergstresser, who was in military intelligence in the 1940s, who was probably the last person to see Tesla alive. And what Bergstresser was telling me was that Tesla was giving Bergstresser all of these secrets to the death ray, so that America would be protected. So yes, he didn't have much money at the end of his life, but what was much more important to him was saving the planet, beating the Nazis, negotiating with the higher ups, in Great Britain and the United States. Yeah. And he saw himself. He said, "I'm a farmer. I plant seeds and let other people, grow the crops." So a lot of his ideas are seeds to help other people. And then I told you, the whole thing about gravity and stuff, that was a seed for me. and that has grown into, I think, a good explanation of trying to explain how to combine gravity with electromagnetism. But he's just very inspiring. He's just an inspiring person, a positive person, and caring about the planet, caring about unifying the world. You and I together right now are fulfilling his dream. He wanted all the continents to be able to communicate
with ease. Thank you so much, Mark. How do you spend your time? How do you unwind? Let me ask some personal questions, like based on what you've been doing. How do you unwind, family life, and all of that?
Well, Lois and I have been together over 50 years. I'm very much in love, and we love to swim, and we love to watch movies together.
Yeah.
We have families that we care about. I play bridge. My partner from high school, we played recently. But I've been working on this film project very much. I've also written another book on ozone therapy. Tesla was sold ozone machines. This horrible pandemic that destroyed the world for a while, put the world on hold for a while. Ozone therapy kills viruses. And so this new book, I'm trying to alert the world that there is a way to kill viruses. And the reason I learned about ozone therapy, it's simply the injection of oxygen and ozone into the bloodstream. I learned because Tesla had an ozone machine. He patented an ozone generator. So he understood that ozone, when used correctly, will help, in cure many diseases. I'm sure there are ozone therapists in Nigeria. So that's another thing that I'm doing. But right now, I'm really heavily working on the screenplay, on the Tesla screenplay. Been really very much involved in that. And I've been doing podcasts. This is great to be able to talk to you.
Thank you.
In Nigeria.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to be here, and we're friends. You know what I mean? It just we hit it off.
Yeah. Like I said, when I reached out to you, I was like, what is it going to be like? And when you responded, wow, it meant the whole world to me. And I couldn't hold it. I had to tell my wife about it, that I just, I met this guy about Tesla, blah, 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 and all of that. She was like, whoa, good for you. And here we are talking about him. I am super excited. I mean, once again, I want to say a very big thank you. I know you're so busy, and I want to wish you well on this project and let you know that I, for one, am looking forward to it, as in to see it on that silver screen and to get to hear more about this individual called Nikola Tesla. I want to say a very big thank you. Guys, we've been discussing with Mr. Mark Jeffrey Safer. We've been talking about the legend of Nikola Tesla. You will agree with me, it has been an amazing 30 minutes plus discussing with him, hearing, this incredible, he's a genius. Let's give it to him. Mind that had walked through the earth, bringing all about positivity and all of that. And his legend lives on, and we're still reaping from that beautiful mind. Before I let Mark go, Mark, tell us your utmost desire for what you are doing now, what you want to see, how you want it to revolutionize what we are seeing today in the world.
Well, the one thing I would say, and this is Tesla in 1904, he said, I want to build my wireless system which will convert the earth into a brain, as it were, which will feel in all its parts. Who thinks like that even now? But that's exactly what you and I are doing. You're in Africa. I'm in North America. We could add another guy in China and another guy in Europe, and the four of us could be talking as four different people right now, unifying the whole world, living that dream. What I would like to see is exactly to the fulfillment of Tesla's dream. He called it harnessing mankind to the wheelwork of nature. The hydroelectric power system runs on waterfalls. The water just keeps falling all the time. It's using Mother Nature's forces. I would like to see, people aware that a cure for all illnesses really does exist.
Yeah.
And it's by studying again Mother Nature. This came from Goethe's findings, but what has been discovered is that our own antibodies manufacture ozone to kill viruses. So it's having an appreciation for nature, having a certain respect for the intelligence of nature, and using that to not pollute the earth, using that to learn how to cure different diseases. I've always said the cure for cancer, we're fighting with cancer all the time. All we have to do is understand how we do that and magnify that ability. The invention of the airplane. Man would have never invented, or women would have never invented the airplane had it not been for birds. We studied birds. So it's that concept. One of my heroes growing up as a kid was Jacques Cousteau. And what I loved about Jacques Cousteau was he would go under the water and use the highest technology to learn about fish and coral reefs and all of that stuff. So that's what I hope, is that we respect nature. I've always loved Africa. The whole idea of the saving all those animals. I felt great kinship like Tesla, with animals, with the lions and everything, the great apes, the birds. Here we have these beautiful hawks. I love the hawks. We have ospreys and pets. We've all owned pets. I have this theory about pets. For instance, dogs. Some dogs are just stupid dogs. Others are secretly human. And we all know what a secretly human dog is, So having that respect. But I'm aware that even ants have intelligence. Just yesterday, I was sitting out in the backyard. The ant was microscopic, but I didn't kill it. But I went like this, pointing around, and it's avoiding me. It's aware. How can I not get eaten by this giant thing? So even ants have intelligence, and it's having respect for all levels of nature, and not polluting the earth. I think that's really what Tesla's trying to do: renewable sources, and looking into how to make our grandchildren and great grandchildren live in a better place. That's really what it's about.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much for this thought. I am super grateful, guys. I mean, we can go on and on discussing with Mark. There's this intelligence everywhere, reaching out for us to harness and make the world a better place. And that's the story. That's Mark's story, as in based on what Nikola Tesla has put forth out there. And so we are all looking forward to that screen. We are all going to be part of to celebrate, the genius of Nikola Tesla. So guys, like I said, you know how we do it on the show. We come into this space to lean on one another's experience to forge a positive path. And it's been an honor having Mark on the show today to add his positivity, to this space. Well, I have to go now, but you know how I say it on this show. Till we come your way again. Bye for now. Mark, what do you have to say?
Thanks so much. It's great meeting you. I want to stay in touch. This was a fantastic experience for me.
Thank you. Awesome time it has been with you on the World Cafe podcast today. Thank you for being there. You can catch me up on my social media handles, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, all at Amakri Isoboye. Also, you can get copies of my books, A Cocktail of Words, The Color of Words, my HR notebook, and Hocus Focus on God on Amazon and Roving Heights online bookstores. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel at the same address at Amakri Isoboye. I love to hear from you and how this podcast has impacted you.